G'day ladies and gents, and welcome to War Thunder with Mags, and welcome aboard the F2H-2 Banshee. Yes, the aircraft that was at the core of my rant video. A few people were actually surprised when they saw me in it the first time that I was actually flying it at all. I don't know why. For those of you who are new to my channel, you may be unaware, but my end goal for War Thunder at this point in time is to actually unlock every aircraft in War Thunder, which I've done on multiple occasions and I do every patch, and to spade every single aircraft in War Thunder, so 100% completion of the air tech trees. I'm probably well and truly more than 2/3 of the way through it at this stage in time, and the US tree is one of my most advanced nations. There's only the B-17, the B-24 Liberator, and a collection of jets that I have left to spade before it's 100% complete. The Banshee, one way or another, has to be done, whether I like it or not. So I'm treating it a bit like a bitter pill. I've been flying pretty much nothing but the Banshee since patch release. I'm going to get the whole plane spaded out, which I'm pretty close to actually completing at this stage in time, and then put it back in the hangar and not worry about it anymore. Just get it all done in one hit and move on. So the Banshee, it's a 6.7 battle rating US naval fighter. It is severely under-tiered. Now, why is it 6.7 battle rating? Why did Gaijin put it there? Well, the only comment I could find on it anywhere, that is a comment in reference to why it received a 6.7 battle rating, was actually by Badadari on the Reddit forums. Now, I love Badadari's work. I think she is one of the most amazing community managers and is extremely good at dealing with some of the bad PR that Gaijin generates. Her job must be a nightmare, so I have nothing but the utmost respect for her. She was a little off mark on the comment. The comment was so simple, it got a 6.7 battle rating because it turns a bit like a whale. And this is true, it does have a relatively slow turning time. That turning time is also entirely irrelevant to the performance of the aircraft in combat. But first things first, the major problem with having a 6.7 battle rating. What you're seeing here is a full team of Japanese prop fighters versus a team consisting of Meteors, Banshees, and F-80Cs at 6.7. This is because if you count Era 4 and Era 5 together for the Japanese, they only actually have 3 aircraft between Era 4 and Era 5 that can't face this aircraft. But hey, I'm sure the KI-84 there was completely happy with this matchmaking. I mean, after all, the Banshee does turn slow. It must be balanced. So, when we're talking about the Banshee, what stats are we actually talking about here? Well, fully upgraded, we're looking at, according to the stat card, 935 kilometers an hour, a 29-second turning time, and a climb rate of just over 5,900 feet per minute. But as always, the stat cards aren't telling you the whole story. Now, the 935 is actually lower than the time that the red line for the plane comes on. The red line for the aircraft comes on at about 945 kilometers an hour, but the plane itself can be pushed out well past 1,000 without breaking its wings. I've never actually managed to snap the wings off in this aircraft, either from high-speed dive or from over-G'ing during a turn. I'm not entirely sure they can break at this point. I imagine there is an upper level to its maximum speed, but so far I've seen 1,050 kilometers an hour out of a dive, and the wings have stayed on without a problem. The second is burst climb energy retention. The burst climb you just saw then took me from basically sea level to 10,000 feet and equal level to the planes that have been climbing since the start of the match in 30 seconds. The only planes that I've encountered so far that come even close to being able to match this level of energy retention in a climb is the Meteors. Hokkaido is probably as close as you'll find to a balanced match in this, and only if you start running into the Sea Meteors and some of the first Meteor F4s. Now that said, they only come close to matching it, they don't actually manage to match it. Starting at equal speed in a close fight, Banshee can go 90 degrees vertical and you'll watch the Meteor stall out trying to follow you. Vampires and Venoms can also forget about it. You have no chance of following this plane up into the sky. So, its turning circle is a little crappy. It's not bad by any means, as you'll see. It handles quite nice, and it's very stable in a turn, but it's not the fastest in the turn. But you wouldn't turn fight with it anyway. The only people that are going to turn fight in a Banshee are the kind of people that will turn fight against Zeros while flying a P-51. It has a great terminal dive speed, It has great energy retention in level flight. Moving out of a dive at around 950 kilometers an hour to level at sea level, you'll maintain 100% of that speed at all times and actually continue accelerating at sea level. So coming out of a dive and just going flat, you're not going to bleed off that dive speed. You'll just hold it until you decide to point the nose back up again. And when you do decide to point the nose back up again, the Banshee is one of those planes that if you dive from 10,000 feet, attain maximum speed at sea level and then point the nose back up, you can generally pull back out of the burst climb at the end of that at around 15 to 20,000 feet. So you quite easily get all your altitude back and then a little extra for insurance. Put all those together and what do you get? Well, the Banshee's a boom and zoom jet fighter. It's a boom and zoom jet fighter that boom and zooms other jet fighters. This is a plane that fights almost exclusively in the vertical. If you're not going down on a target, you're going up away from it, and that's all you do. You do not turn with them at level. The only time you stay low at any time is if you're trying to intercept a target in the flat that's not turning. The second it turns away, you do not follow it. You point your nose straight back up, go back into altitude. When you have enough altitude, you turn it over, line up another dive, and go back down again. If it turns again, you just go back up. Flying it in this matter, the Banshee is basically untouchable by any aircraft at this battle rating. So, have I died in it? Well, of course I have. I've done some stupid things. I've gone head-on before. That's a bad idea. The plane is large. It has a massive wingspan. If you go head-on, you're going to get your wings shot off every single time. I have overcooked dives. It does seem to have a complete flight model. It does suffer compressibility. It does suffer control stiffening at high speeds. Those high-speed dives, when you start passing out beyond 850 kilometers an hour, it gets really hard to pull the nose up. And air brakes and flaps aren't always enough to get that nose up off the ground at those sort of speeds. Sometimes it just wants to go in, so you've got to be really cautious about it. So I've killed myself by overcooking dives before. What do these two things have in common? Well, it's generally when you do something stupid that you die. Flying this plane correctly, there's nothing that can actually catch you. Short of maybe having something come out of the clouds that was above that you didn't see, that intercepts you as you're going through a burst climb, there's basically nothing that can get guns on you. So just levelling the plane out of a burst climb and heading back towards the British runway, hunting for targets at the moment. There's a Meteor back there, there's a Canberra, there's a Vampire. I think there may be a second Canberra as well, although that may have gone down. Now the priority order is pretty simple here. I'm going for the Meteor first, at least for the moment, unless a better target shows up. The Vampire is higher if I can get guns on it. I want the Canberras dead as well. So Meteor is pulled back. That's going to be too sharp a dive to be comfortable. There's the Vampire. Just tip it over. Shots in. Canberra is zooming back through. Pull the nose up into the vertical. That was the Vampire dead. Aligning to go through the loop to redive back on the Canberra and catch it. The Banshee can catch the Canberra at top speed with no problems at all. Now the Meteor is off to my right and is manoeuvring on me, however, it can't catch me, so I am completely ignoring it at this time. There is no way it's going to be able to get within gun range. There's just nothing it can do. Move in on the Canberra fast. It does have engine damage. I want this thing taken out first, or taken out second rather. As you can see, we're low on tickets at the front. I don't know if it's got bomb load on. If it gets back and blows up targets, it could potentially be a problem for the match. It needs to be eliminated next as priority. As you can see, low and fast, out of the dive, and energy retention, keeping all my speed, not losing anything, and continuing to accelerate. And I'll continue to accelerate up to about 940 to 950 kilometers an hour before it drops down. Now some pretty piss poor shooting here, but critical takes out the plane. With the engine damage, rudder and tail damage there, that should have been enough, but just in case, take it straight back vertical and ready to redive. But he goes down. Turn the plane around and you can see the energy retention. It didn't actually take that long to turn this plane around, and I'm back into another burst again, still doing over 500 kilometers an hour, passing 6,000 feet, and I'm aligning up ready to dive on the Meteor, which is still on the deck. Now I was going to go down then, but that would have put me into a head-on situation, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to stay up here at altitude, pull a little bit more, see where the Meteor is going to go, and then dive in. But the Meteor goes head-to-head with one of our other fighters and kills itself, and that was the last fighter remaining on the team. So, need more of a challenge. How about a team of 262s, including the rocket-propelled variants? That'd be a little bit more interesting. Now this 262 has just blown its rocket engine to get out to 20,000 feet. This guy, I've got an upgraded A1A. I haven't got a fully upgraded C series yet. I'm pretty sure, however, looking at the speeds he was able to pull, that plane is fully upgraded. It's got everything it can on it. And this plane, at the time of this battle, actually was only Tier 2 upgraded. I'd only just unlocked the ammunition belts for it, which give me access to stealth rounds. And I brought them out as a trial on this. So this is only, let's call it half upgraded. Be on the safe side, we'll call it half upgraded. That 262 cannot catch me. Now he's staying close, but I'm slowly ticking the speed out here, and I can push the nose down and go even further. Now there is a 109 back there. That 109 failed platoon with one of the 262s and got into this match. Yeah, I pity him. This whole team is B-57s, Banshees, and F-80Cs. There's going to be bugger all he's going to be able to catch. Although, if the F-80Cs go head-to-head, I think he actually does get 1 or 2 kills. And here's where I really start messing up the 262s, because I just point the nose straight up and go back to 20,000 feet. Without the rocket engines on the C variants, they can't follow me. Now this was the battle where I pretty much truly learnt how to fly the Banshee properly. Up until this point, I'd really just been derping around. Most of my matches have been against props. I hadn't really been put under a challenge. Oh, there you go. That's what War Thunder looks like from an Australian perspective. But as I was saying, up until this point, I'd never been put under a challenge where I needed to fly the plane correctly. I could afford to do pretty much whatever I wanted. The 262s in this battle were some of the first jets that I ever encountered in the Banshee. So what we're looking at here is arguably the most over-tiered jet in the game versus arguably the most under-tiered jet in the game. Let's see how this pans out. Now the B-57s have already done their work and bombed the absolute crap out of the bombing targets, giving us a massive ticket lead from the word go. Selected first target. It's a C variant 262. Its rocket engine has burnt out. I think it was the one that was following me up into the clouds before. Okay, the dive speed and acceleration in the dive is too fast for me to apply air brakes and pull onto the tail like that, so I just fold the air brakes back up and let it accelerate out to 900 kilometers an hour, take the plane straight back into the vertical. The 262 is on my tail, almost 90 degrees straight up, and just pull back to orbit. The 262 fires a couple of shots, but I'm out accelerating it in an almost 90 degree vertical climb. Negative G over to level. The 262 just can't get here. Both 262s that were attempting to follow me hit the verge of stalling and begin turning out. They know at this point that there's no point in following me. They are trying, they're doing everything they can to try and get up here, but I've nearly opened a 2-kilometer gap on them at the moment. At this sort of range, I'm quite safe to begin a nice, slow banking turn. No real rush, I just want to see exactly how fast they can get up here and bring the nose back around to the approximate area that I'll need to in order to dive back. I'm keeping a track on what that vampire is doing as well. I want to get myself back into position here because I have lost a lot of teammates so far. Now you'll notice turn rate here, and the energy retention in the turn is much lower than in the previous Meteor match. This match, as I said, is only about Tech 2 upgraded. The Meteor match you saw before was a nearly completed performance upgraded aircraft. The 109 is desperately trying to climb up here at the moment. It has actually got a higher climb rate than the 262s do. However, I also know exactly how those things climb. I can maintain doing 90 degree turns like I am here, and every time he turns it's going to kill his energy retention to the point of stalling. He won't be able to continue climbing and doing it. However, I spot a low flying target. We got two 262s and they're over our Vampire down low, or over both of them rather. Push it into a dive. Again, you'll notice the dive acceleration is much slower as the aircraft is not quite as upgraded as it was in the previous match. And ooh, it's busy. Oh, here's the other half of the enemy team. Roll it over, take shots, and stealth ammo. I really shouldn't have used the stealth ammo. The guns on this thing stock, much like most of the A&M3 cannons, they're shotguns. They spray all over the place. Leading them is a pain in the ass when you have not got them upgraded. Loading stealth ammunition into them in an aircraft that you're uncomfortable with weapons that are inaccurate to begin with, not a good combination. 600km/h loop, already accelerating back past 700km/h for a re-dive, selecting target again. I'm going through for this 262, second pass. It turns hard. Don't bother following it, just take it straight back into the vertical, go back for altitude. 262s cannot follow me. There is nothing they can do to keep with me at this time. So providing I keep going vertical and I do not try and turn with them, they can't shoot me. All those 30mm cannons down there, all those mine shot rounds, and there is absolutely nothing they can do to get them on target and kill me. And this was about the point in the match that I came to the realization that the Germans just cannot follow me in the vertical in this plane. Providing I keep going into the vertical and then boom and zooming these 262s, they cannot get up here with me, they cannot get to altitude, they cannot engage me. So I begin getting a little bit more bold here. I'm willing to dive straight into the pack of the 262s, select out a target, and go for a kill. So I've got one isolated, heading rapidly out towards 900km/h, closing fast. It has taken slight damage, looks like it's been hit by AAA. Line up the shot. Just trying to calculate where I'm going to get on the stealth rounds. Good hits right across the tail, critical strikes, blow the second engine. Just keep going, there's no point in me following that plane anymore, there's no reason for me to need to turn. The 262 can turn better than I can, I'll just take it straight back into the vertical and pick a new target. I should point out at this point, I'm the last fighter left on the American team. There's me and a B-57. The B-57 has dropped its bomb load and is hanging around our bombing targets. He's hanging around there to let me know if anybody goes over and tries to blow them up to bring the ticket score back. But this is me alone versus the entirety of the German team. The only aircraft the Germans have lost, well, at this point in the match, is none, but the one that I just shot up is very soon about to crash. So I just pull the plane back above 12,000 feet, start accelerating again, get it out past 400km/h. Now I'm just pushing the throttles open enough so that I'll break the 8km spotting gap that's present in 1.45 so that the enemy cannot locate me at this time. The idea here is I'm going to break contact, tip the plane back over, and I don't want the German fighters to be able to spot me until I'm already in the dive heading towards them. Now, as I said before, I do have stealth rounds loaded into these guns. I don't really recommend them unless you are a really good shot or you really enjoy, firing shots at the enemy and not have them realising you're pulling the trigger. They'd be useful in arcade, but in terms of overall damage, they don't seem to have a lot more impact than omni-purpose is, to be perfectly honest. Honestly, the 20mm belt upgrade isn't something that I would be overly rushing to get into in the first place on this plane anyway. The default rounds on this plane are not bad by any means. They're actually really, really good. They're very, very close to the omni-purpose, which is the belts you'll most likely be using when you do have the upgrade. I would spend the RP on performance upgrades and only grab the 20mm when it's necessary for you to do so. So, completing the loop and nosing down, and we have a 262. Next target, prepare to dive in. He attempts to go vertical. I just roll the plane hard and out of the way. I am not going nose to nose with 4 30mm cannons. That would just be stupid and giving up every single advantage that I have. Pushing the dive out. Create a little bit of separation between me and him. 750, 760. Just checking out other targets at the time. Pick a new one. He can't follow me through these dives, so I can afford to turn, have a look at a new target. We've got the 162 going past here. 262 is still attempting to follow me, but I'm just opening up the gap even while engaging the 162, and as I begin to increase altitude, the 262 is going to fall even further behind. 162 very smartly tips it underneath, so just level the plane out, build my dive speed right up, go back to level, just checking my gaps, making sure nothing else is in position. That's perfectly fine. Straight back into a burst climb and back to altitude. Now, despite putting up a hell of a good fight and eliminating almost the entirety of our team, the ticket counter is still going down in favour of the United States. The Germans are almost out of tickets at this point. The B-57's still alive, he's just hanging around over the bombing targets. There's nothing he can do at this point. He's got no guns, he's out of bombs. There's very little he can do but play spotter over that side of the map for me. I would have liked more time. I've still got 407 rounds of cannon ammunition on board at this time. I've still got 15 minutes worth of fuel. and I'm really getting a hang of flying this plane in this battle. I wanted there to be a way that I could stop the ticket counter from continuing to go down, but unfortunately no, I'm on a very limited time here to get any more kills. So, nose the plane back down, got a 262 that's just ahead, he's moved out of visual range. Just having a chat, this should give you an idea of exactly how relaxed I was at this point in time. Despite being severely outnumbered, I've completely come to terms with the fact that they just cannot get me. That even 262s at 7.7 battle rating, rocket-propelled 262s, cannot catch this plane. So back in the dive again, pushing over 800 kilometers an hour, next target is selected, 262 that, well, as the pilot said in chat, really looks like it's using coal-powered turbines. Now at this point I really would have liked to engage somebody else, but unfortunately I'm not entirely sure where the rest of the German team went. They all seemed to scatter. They were all over the Allied runway and then they just dispersed. Again, just trying to line up the stealth ammunition here. This 262 is pretty much done for. Just ran some guns over the back end of it, critical detail controls, and it's now in an uncontrollable dive going down. I have a 162 behind me, and that is the only other German fighter that I have a location on at the moment, so just taking the plane straight vertical, going back to altitude as much as I can, beginning to reposition myself to dive in on the 162. 279 rounds of ammunition, still got 13 minutes of fuel left on board. I'm completely unworried about supplies, even if this match wasn't going to end in the next few minutes. This plane is incredibly easy to carry to land, providing you can get the wheels to strike the deck over top of the arresting cables. The hook will connect and will pull it to a stop almost straight away. It is probably the easiest naval fighter to put down that I've ever had to land on a carrier. Pushing 900 out of the dive, closing in rapidly on the 162, just dipping down below it. I want to go beneath the aircraft and then come up from behind. It gives me a better angle of attack. 1.8, 1.7, that 262 will be at max speed at the moment and probably got its wet wide open, and that's the rate of closing. As you see, 945, the overspeed comes on, pushing over 950. It's not a problem, it'll sit at that speed all day without a problem. Pull the plane vertical, come in from underneath. Now, despite the slow turning time, as you can see, maneuverability wise, it's not that bad. Get a nice solid hit on the 162 despite the south rounds and despite maneuvering. 162 tries to go vertical, it's trying to tip itself over. I'll actually just take the plane straight up and loop it back around. Level out. I was losing a little bit too much airspeed there, so push out the altitude but just quit the maneuvering so I can retain my energy better. Get up nice and high. Begin to bring the nose around to dive back on the 162, but unfortunately that's all she wrote. 162 drops out of visual range. I know exactly where it is. Just positioning myself ready to turn it back around, and the match is about to end in the next few seconds. This was the last chance that I had to actually kill him. Didn't get quite enough lead, fired the shots, missed completely, put it down the canyon. 840, suffering control stiffening, just put it through the canyon, push it back up into the vertical, and that's it. Game over. So the results for that match: third place for the team behind the two B-57 bombers, 2 kills of the 3 aircraft that were shot down by our team total. 43,495 silver lions, and you know what, it doesn't really matter. This plane is just a beast. Meteors can't catch it, 262s can't catch it, it can outrun the Canberras and the B-57s, it's just a lethal machine. The only plane that is currently within its battle rating spread that can reliably catch this aircraft is actually the Venom. However, the Venom cannot maintain speed with it in the vertical, so all a Banshee pilot has to do if a Venom is closing on it in behind is point straight up, and you'll just outrun the Venom in the vertical. When I was on the test server, I called out this plane as probably should have been about 7.3, and that's where I expected Gaijin would move it to. Obviously, they didn't move it at all. However, I still stand by that 7.3. A 7.3 battle rating puts it against aircraft that with with the right amount of time, would be able to learn how to counter it. Those 262s couldn't catch me, but I imagine that was one of the first times those 262s had ever encountered a Banshee. With a little bit of practice and getting used to having to fly against these aircraft, they will probably work out tactics in order to eliminate me. Instead of trying to follow me into the vertical, they'd probably stay low, wait till I boom through and use their superior turning to try and pull the guns in and get me as I'm trying to make my pull out when I'm at my maximum amount of compression and therefore least manoeuvrable point of the dive. But back to the first clip in this video, that's the major problem with the Banshee. Aircraft at 7.7 battle rating struggle to deal with this machine. How the hell is a prop meant to? Anyways, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed the video. Click like if you do, subscribe if you want to see more. Fly smart, fly safe, and I'll catch you in the skies.